What's up, everybody? My name's Shane Moore. You can find me over at the CineBros Facebook page, facebook.com/the CineBros. You can also find me on Twitter at the CineBros. What I came here to do is a best films of 2014. It's going to be a top 10 list. I had a lot of films that were on the cusp, so I am going to give you an honorable mention list. But before I get into that, I want to just let you know that this is my list. I didn't get to see every film. So out of the 50, 60 films that I saw this year, this is my list. Don't hate on me too much. Great discussions. Why I have certain films in certain positions. Great. Don't hate me. This is my list. It's just my list. All right, so let's start off with the honorable mentions. Peabody and Sherman, which I thought was a surprise movie of the year for me. I didn't really think it was going to be good going in, but it was phenomenal. We have John Wick, which some people might hate me for putting in there because that is the best pure action movie of the year. Chef, don't go to that movie hungry. You'll chew your arm off. Battle of Five Armies, epic climax, great job, ending the trilogy and even giving you a good segue into the original, which we got several years back, which is The Lord of the Rings. Two movies in here that I really might get some heat for are 22 Jump Street. Don't get me wrong, gave me the biggest, longest laugh of the year, but it was not my favorite comedy of the year. Lego Movie is another one that I thought was extremely fun, really fast-paced. I can't wait for the second one. I love the animation, how it felt stop motion, but it wasn't the best animated film, in my opinion, of the year. Now, this is my top 10, and I am really happy with this list. So enjoy it with me, and we're going to start off with number 10, which is Neighbors. This movie gave me such joy to watch, and I just watched it again for a second time, and it provided me with the same amount of laughs. That scene where the airbags and they get shot up into the ceiling, and then all of a sudden his friend gets shot up into the ceiling. I almost fell off my couch watching it for the second time. Hilarious. The chemistry between Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne and Zac Efron, Dave Franco, all phenomenal. I love this movie, and I highly recommend buying it on Blu-ray. Next movie we have up is a movie that I saw fairly recent, and that is The Imitation Game. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch, what I felt going in was going to be the Benedict Cumberbatch show. It wasn't, because everybody else in the movie was also great. Keira Knightley, phenomenal. Benedict Cumberbatch did a great job portraying Alan Turing, and I thought the script was very good. There was a lot of comedy in it, which I wasn't expecting, and that's why it made my top 10 list at number 9. Number 8 is How to Train Your Dragon 2. I loved How to Train Your Dragon. Such a well-done movie. I really was kind of on the fence in this one. I was like, how can they meet the standards that they've set? Well, they did it, and they surpassed it. Anytime you can get grown men to almost cry in the theater with a cartoon, I mean, that's great. I loved watching Hiccup and Toothless grow. I liked the relationship between him and his father, Blossom. Everything was great about this movie across the board. By far my favorite animated film of the year. So well done. I can't wait. I hope they do a number 3. I know this one didn't do quite as well as probably they were expecting. It made a lot of money, but it didn't do quite as well as some of the other bigger franchises that are out there. Number 7. Now, I'm probably going to get some serious heat for having this so low on the list, but that's Guardians of the Galaxy. It was my 3rd favorite comic book movie of the year. I loved the soundtrack. Is amazing. I own it. I play it all the time. We have my family dancing in the kitchen when I'm cooking and all that kind of stuff. It is so good. Love the soundtrack. I love the fast pace. I love how Rocket Raccoon is by far my favorite character, and Bradley Cooper gave us that character to a T. Loved it. But it did fall down the list a little bit just because I felt that the villain, as usual with Marvel, didn't really hit home. I really want a strong villain, and we didn't get that in this movie. So that's why it is number 7 on my list. Number 6 is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. This movie was extremely well done. The CG work, the mocap with Andy Serkis and Toby Kebbell was so good. I left the theater, was like, did they use some real apes in this? Like the hair, like you could see individual hairs and you could recognize all of the features. Like you didn't have to be told every single time which ape was who, because they had different face painting and just some different features. And you knew exactly who was who in every scene. And then on top of that, you had the human characters. And I think his name is Jason Clarke. He did a great job. Kerry Russell, smaller role, but also did a good job. The film as a whole was really well done. I loved everything about it. And I can't wait for the third installment. It just got pushed back a year. But I will give Matt Reeves the benefit of the doubt with what he gave us for this far superior sequel to Rise, which Rise was a very good one. Number 5 on this list is a character that I hold near and dear. I like him a lot. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, to give you a little background, there are several superhero characters that I really, really like a lot. Captain America is one of them. Wolverine is another. Those are kind of the ones on the top of the list. I was on the fence of naming my son, who's named Cameron, which doesn't make sense for any of superhero world, but I had tested out names of Logan and Steve. I even went Roger because I was like, Steve Rogers, we could possibly, it just didn't fit my son's face. It just didn't. Anyway, I loved this movie so much. I thought that the action, the 70s spy thriller kind of feel to it, the chemistry between him and Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, like, are they friends? Like, do they want a little more? What's going on? I mean, all that kind of stuff. I loved it. I loved everything about it. The biggest thing that this film did for me, there's a character in there that I've never really cared for, and that is Falcon. Anthony Mackie and how they did this script, I loved his character by the end. I want him to have so much more face time. I was shocked because I've never liked his character. Why? I don't know. It just never really resonated with me. But Anthony Mackie's portrayal of him, I loved it. One of the bigger flaws that I had with the film is that not the Winter Soldier, but I'm weird sometimes when it comes to movies, and his voice bothered me. I don't know. When he spoke, it just didn't seem intimidating at all. It kind of gave me that Bucky feel, which is kind of like a sidekick, and granted that's where he came from, but I just didn't care for it. I wanted, rough and tough, and I didn't get that. Number 4 is book, All You Need Is Kill. When it came out in the theaters, it was Edge of Tomorrow, and then Live, Die, Repeat, which I think is the worst title out of all of them. But I went into this film with really low expectations. I wasn't even going to go see it. I read this little review by somebody that a lot of people probably know is Scott the Movie Mance, and he gave this movie a rave review. And then I contacted him on Facebook, and I was like, really? Like, this Edge of Tomorrow? Like, it looks like another Tom Cruise alien movie, and I love Tom Cruise, but I don't want to see the same movie over and over and over again. He assured me, he said, go, you will love it, you'll probably want to buy it on Blu-ray afterwards. And he was right, 100%. What you didn't get was that there was going to be so much comedy in this. You saw growth. You thought that Tom Cruise was going to be this big badass from the beginning to end. No, Emily Blunt is that badass from beginning to end. Tom Cruise is a wuss and grows slowly over the course of the movie as a badass. You get this Groundhog's Day effect, which is phenomenal in an action movie, sci-fi action movie. And they sprinkled in this humor throughout that made it really funny. There was times where I almost lost some lines because I was laughing so hard. So anyway, yes, Edge of Tomorrow, it was such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it right now. You will not be let down. You like action, comedy, or sci-fi, any of those things, you will like this movie. And Emily Blunt's in it, so definitely watch it, because if you're a guy, even if you're a woman, Emily Blunt. Next up on the list is Birdman as my number 3. I loved this movie. I loved everything. It's almost a flawless film. From beginning to end, you see Michael Keaton struggling to be that actor that's respected for his craft and not just the celebrity superhero. And also a mirror of his life as we would see it through the media. Like, that's how I saw this film. I saw this like, Michael Keaton has had a career. It hasn't been as big as when he was Batman, but he has had a career, a fairly steady career throughout time. But us in the media are like, where has he gone since Batman and Beetlejuice and all that? Like, where'd he go? He just fell off the face of the earth. Well, not for, movie lovers who go see a lot of movies every year. He's been there. He's been very good throughout all the years. This one brings him back to the forefront, though. And then you have other characters in there like Ed Norton, kind of played off of what we think of him from what the media gives us. Like, we kind of see him as kind of like maybe this brat who kind of stomps his feet when he doesn't get his way. And, he is a true actor and loves the true art form. But he is a little bit of a baby and gives some temper tantrums. Well, that's kind of what they give you in this movie. And that's what I loved about it. It was almost like they gave us what we feel, even though it's not who they really are. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. There's a couple of flaws. I mean, the biggest flaw I had was the ending. Kind of left it a little too open. I had my idea what the ending was going to be. I just don't really care for the open ending unless... I don't know. I just felt like it didn't work 100% in this movie. Other than that, I mean, everything, like I said, score, the drums that threw out, that kind of made you insane as the movie went on. And that's what they wanted out of that. So I just thought it was great. Number 2 on this list is X-Men Days of Future Past. I am very biased when it comes to X-Men. As I told you before, Wolverine is one of my favorite characters, as I'm sure a lot of you. And just the X-Men franchise. I mean, I grew up watching that cartoon. Yes, I did have some comic books. They did such a good job with time travel, which is so difficult to do in movies. And you got this back and forth where they would show you the future, they'd show you the past, and the future where you have these unstoppable sentinels and they're just destroying and annihilating all of the mutants. And then this past where the 70s and they're dressed a little different, and it just gives you a totally different feel. And you also get this extreme conflict from Magneto and Professor X. They have this past that is just so hard to overcome, and they are just going head to head. And then you, of course, in the past get this phenomenal scene with Quicksilver. Everybody knows, I'm sure you've already seen it, how well they did. I'm so glad Evan Peters held up to the standards that I thought he was going to be, because I know a lot of people were hating on him with the way he looked and all that kind of stuff. I was like, it's the 70s. I mean, he fits the part. I think he's going to do a good job. Granted, I thought that Aaron Taylor Johnson was going to do a really good job as well. I thought he was going to fit the actual look of the cartoon version of Quicksilver very well. But then I saw Godzilla, and I realized that he can't really act. He is a one-tone actor, and he doesn't give you much depth. I don't think he can pull it off, and especially with what Evan Peters did. X-Men Days of Future Past, one of my favorite films of the year. It was tied for my highest rating of the year. I loved everything about this movie. There was even a guy who was on his phone like over and over again. He's like checking his phone. I went and yelled at him twice. Like, first time, nice. Hey, can you please just, turn down your phone? A few seconds later, I go, dude, if you don't stop, I'm going to have to get somebody. And he comes and scoffs at me and keeps going. And then some dude over there yells at the guy, gets him to put down his phone, and people start clapping, which takes you out of the film a little bit. I still loved that movie. I hope I didn't miss anything while I was slowly exploding in my own body because of this guy. I wanted to see this film so bad. I had been waiting for a year to go see this movie, and this guy's on his phone over and over and over again. He pays, $17.50 or whatever it is to go see an IMAX movie, and he's on the phone the whole time. It's a much cheaper way to do that. Much cheaper. Go to a matinee. My number 1 film of the year is Gone Girl. This movie kept me on the edge of my seat from the very beginning, because at the very beginning, there's not much going on. This is like kind of weird and boring. Like, I don't get it. When is it going to... So I was on the edge of my seat just because of that. I'm like waiting for something to happen. Well, it happened pretty quick. And from there on out, you were on the edge of your seat, either laughing uncomfortably because of getting smacked over the face with all these twists and turns, or you're just laughing because there's some funny parts in this movie. And David Fincher is a genius with crime thrillers. I haven't loved a movie like this kind of crime thriller, since Seven, which he happened to also direct. The dude's a genius, especially in this genre. I couldn't say enough good things about this. The twists and turns, the turns and twists, it's just back and forth, and you don't know what's going to happen, and it keeps shaking you up. And the cast, I think Ben Affleck is very overlooked, underrated. He did a phenomenal job in this role. You have Rosamund Pike, who will get nominated. I haven't seen Still Alice. I haven't seen Cake, so I can't really say that she deserves to win. But as of right now, with the movies that I've seen, she deserves to win. Even Neil Patrick Harris, Doogie Howser, who Doogie Howser is, for someone who's my age, would get that reference. He wasn't the best in the role, but he played that creepy kind of like stalker-ish kind of guy. Like, I'll do whatever you want. Like, kind of, it was just so creepy. So I thought he did a pretty good job in the role, even though he wasn't the best out of the whole group. Even Tyler Perry, for a guy who didn't want to be in this film after he realized David Fincher was directing it, it was a best-selling book. I don't know why he wants to dress up in a fat suit and deal with all that, but he did a really good job, stellar job. Even Ben Affleck's sister in the movie, I can't remember what her name is off the top of my head, but she even did it. I mean, everybody, top to bottom, phenomenal, awesome. The biggest complaint I would say most people had, I didn't have any, was the fact that it went a little too long. Not me. David Fincher could have kept me there all day. He could have kept me there for another hour. Then he could have taken me out for a couple glasses of bourbon. And then after that, to a coffee shop to keep me up a little bit longer and tell me a story about these people. Then he could have brought me home, tucked me in bed, and then told me a bedtime story about these two people. I wouldn't have been able to fall asleep because I would have just wanted to hear more and more about David Fincher's telling of this couple. Phenomenal. So good. All right. So that was my top 10 list. What did you think of my top 10 lists? You can let me know in the comment section below. You can also hit me up on the CineBros, which is at the CineBros on Twitter. You can hit me up facebook.com/the CineBros. You also can email. If you have any questions in the future, you can email me over at thecinebros@gmail.com. Let's just do this. Let's go forward in 2015. Cracking some YouTube videos. I will be doing a worst 2014 list soon, and then after that, I'll try and get into the anticipated list, which I've already seen The Kingsman. If you haven't seen my review, you can check it out. I'm really looking forward to 2015 because it has so much promise. There are so many films. I'm gonna have a hard time narrowing it down to 10. I might have to do 15, but in the meantime, hugs and high fives, baby.